Hey, how's excuse me, how's everyone doing? Oh boy, excuse me. Glad you could be here, whether it's Sunday night over in the West or Monday morning here in Asia. Thanks for coming out. Today's live stream, we're going to be taking a look at what's going on in Sri Lanka. I actually had time to go and interview someone I know this past weekend who is a resident of Sri Lanka. So he's going to let us talk to him. Actually, we already recorded it, but we have about maybe 15 or 20 minutes of it. So I'll let you folks listen to it and we'll go over it. Pretty interesting stuff that he had to say. And before that, we'll take a look at this past interview with Keith Weiner. No Gerald Salente updates this weekend because I think they took the week off due to Easter. So it may be a short one. Hopefully it may be a short one this time. And I'll be with you guys shortly. And the Sri Lanka interview, I tell you, it's a real eye opener. So hope you stick around for that. So Nilhan, how you doing? Michael, how you doing? Paul, how you doing? I'll be with you guys shortly. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV, and this is our weekly live stream. Glad you could be here. So again, just want to give a quick shout out to those of you who made it. Seymour Rivers, Vutron, how you doing? Halbar, haven't seen you in a while. Halbar, and of course Vincent. And Vincent would also like to say, hang on, let me get this out here. Hello to everyone. So again, glad you all could be here. Michelle Pokipala, how you doing? Aloha from Hawaii. Aloha. It's been a while since I've been back home there. Sean Walker, Tweety Bird, how you doing, Tweety Bird? Mr. Nguyen. You know what? That it was. It definitely was the interview with Keith. I tell you what, he's a very, very colorful guy. The metaphors that he uses, the examples that he uses, very colorful. And what he says a lot of the times, it may go against the grain of what we want or, maybe what we think things to be, but it's all about truth, right? I mean, it's his opinion. He's not going to buckle under any type of pressure. He's going to tell you what he thinks. And that's what we appreciate about Keith. And usually it's a well thought out thesis that he's letting you know. So, again, kudos to Keith. Thank you for him coming on. Really do appreciate that. Robert Nozawa, how you doing? Aloha to you as well. And people from Hawaii in the house, how you doing? Henry C. Thomas, how you doing? Mr. Bateman, Mark the Silver Shark. Okay, so again, glad you all could be here. As always, you can find us on social media, silverbullion.com.sg. This is where you can find our website. Yes, we do sell gold, silver, palladium, platinum, things like that. We do offer storage in the jurisdiction of Singapore. But more than that, we do specialize in wealth protection, and I think a lot of you folks out there already know why we have the need for wealth protection, especially a systemic type of event that may happen. Definitely need wealth protection. So get in touch with us either at sales@silverbullion.com.sg or sbtv@silverbullion.com.sg. You can also find us on Facebook, Silver Bullion SG. Silver Bullion PL, Private Limited, is where you can find us on Twitter. Silver Bullion SG on Instagram. Audio-only versions can be found on bit.ly/SBTV iTunes or SBTV Spotify. And Crisis Tracker. If you have that Telegram app, use it. Search keyword or search the one word, Crisis Tracker. And that's where you will find articles that Vincent and we will post. Usually as it pertains to things like economics, finance, gold, silver, things like that. A lot of things going on. So we really, spend quite a bit of time sometimes trying to pick out the few that may be relevant, because I tell you, there are quite a bit of articles out there. So we try to sift through it for them, or for you anyway. So again, welcome aboard. Appreciate it. Andrew, PA, James, Alex. Again, if you are new, Jay Delaney, aloha. If you are new, go ahead and type in new and where you're from. We'll see if we can acknowledge you. If you have a question, type in a big letter Q and let us know what your question is. And either Vincent or I will try to go ahead and answer it for you. So again, appreciate you being here. Upcoming guest, we are going to have Alistair McLeod, head of research at Gold Money. He's going to join us on that day. Alistair has been a celebrated stockbroker and member of the London Stock Exchange for over 4 decades, and his experience encompasses equity and bond markets, fund management, corporate finance, and investment strategy. So we do hope that you'll join us for that Alistair McLeod interview. So again, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when that interview comes up, and thumbs ups are always appreciated. So we'll move on to our ebook giveaway. Actually, you know what? I tried to get an ebook, but for some reason Amazon won't allow gifting ebooks. So I have to look into that and see what's going on. I really wanted to bring back the ebook giveaway, but instead we're going to have to go ahead and go with the Amazon gift card again, which is going to be a $10 Amazon gift card that we'll go ahead and give to you. If you want to win it, you're going to have to be one of the first 5 to answer the upcoming question correctly. You're going to have to answer it in about 1.5 minutes. U.S. winners, we're going to give you a link. Outside of U.S., we'll still give you the link, but you may have to go ahead and get with Amazon customer service to see if you can get that card in your own country. So one of those things, Amazon, they're kind of quirky sometimes, but they're pretty good with their customer service, so that's a good thing. And you're going to have to provide us with an email during this live stream, and you're going to be emailing us at sbtv@silverbullion.com.sg, and my colleague Vincent, he'll go ahead and post that up for you. Okay, so Yukon Cornelius, you know what? That is the thing going on right now. No notification. We've been hearing that quite a bit. No notification, even with the reminder on. I can tell you, even in my own personal account, I don't even get notified. So, well, I think you folks know how it is. Sometimes they like you and sometimes they don't, right? So again, yes, Mr. Nguyen Alistair, he's coming on. He's made a few statements about the China with over 20,000 tons, and he also, I think, made some statements about he thinks Russia has a whole lot more gold stashed away than what they're letting us know as well. So, again, looking forward to that and seeing what Alistair has to say. So moving on to that question, if you want to win that $10 gift card, it comes from the Keith Weiner interview. The question is, get ready. The question is, according to Keith Weiner, all other currencies are dollar blank. All other currencies are dollar blank. Think about it. Keith's a smart guy, so you give a pretty smart answer to this. So think about it. All other currencies are dollar blank. So let's go ahead and take your best shot. You never know. You may win it, right? You never know. Let's see. Let's see for these coming in. Let's see. Yeah, notifications. Something's going on with them again. But anyway, glad you made it here. Appreciate it. So go ahead and take a shot. All other currencies are dollar blanks. So go ahead and take a guess. Here we see Mitch Alex, substitute. Mr. Nguyen, denominated. Henry saying derivative. What else is out there? Mr. Nguyen. Well, Vutran. Okay, so let's go pretty quick. Dependent. Debt. Denominated. Derivative. Mr. Panhard. The Mick. How you doing? Aloha. It's okay. We won't penalize you. Luke Farley. Derivative. Patrick Bateman. Denominated. Pablo Pina. Credited. Denominated. Alternatives. Denominated. Derivatives. A lot of great answers. There. So let's see what else is out there. Still got a little bit of time left. And that's going to be it. So we do have the five winners And they are going to be, let me pull this up here. They are going to be Luke Farley. The answer is going to be derivative. Silver Warrior. Derivatines is fine. I think I may have spelled derivative wrong a few times myself, so I'm with you. I get it. Yukon Cornelius, derivatives. Rod Panhard, derivatives. And Henry, derivatives. So these are going to be the five guys. And just to make sure that these are the five guys, let's go ahead and let's revisit that Keith Weiner interview and see if that is what he did say.
I part with most of my gold colleagues, and I don't necessarily agree that there's a de-dollarization going on. And I have to preface my remarks by saying everything I'm about to describe is perverse. It isn't good. It isn't good for America. It isn't good for the world. It isn't in any way a defense of the dollar, which is failing. It's just not failing in the way that I think a lot of people that assume that it is. So, number one, all the other currencies are dollar derivatives. That is, they actually depend on the dollar in the way that a call option on Apple depends on Apple. So any discussion of de-Appleization and people are going to buy the call options instead of the shares, it's not even mechanically possible. It doesn't even make sense, like in terms of physics. People say the dollar is the least dirty shirt in the laundromat, which is true, I guess, in that as much as the U.S. government abuses its credit, I think generally less than most other countries abuse theirs. But the other currencies are dollar derivatives, number one. Number two, the dollar is by far the most marketable, not commodity, but credit. It's the most marketable credit. It's recognized internationally.
All right, so the word we were looking for was derivative. 5 of you got it, so congratulations to you. I'll put the names up again. So all currencies are dollar derivatives. All other currencies depend on the dollar. It's not mechanical, possible to de-dollarize, is what Keith says. And the dollar is the most marketable credit. I liked how he used that word credit. So I want to know your thoughts on this. And again, just to make sure we get those 5 in, they are Luke Farley, who went and said derivatives. Silver Warrior. Gotcha. Don't worry, buddy. Silver Warrior, derivatives. Yukon Cornelius, derivatives. Rod Panhard, derivatives. And Henry also said derivatives. So I want to know your thoughts on what Keith said, and I'll play another clip from that interview.
Today, there's no unit of currency that was created by gold deposit. They were all created as irredeemable. So to declare it to be gold backed now, it's one of two things. It's either trust us, we have X amount of gold in the vault, which you can't see and can't touch under any circumstances, but we promise that the amount of gold we have in the vault is sufficient to back our currency at whatever exchange rate that we declare. And we promise we'll never, ever change that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Or it means a price fixing scheme that we say the currency is worth this much gold, to which the answer has to be, but every government and central bank price fixing scheme ever has failed. Without exception, they always fail.
All right, without exception, they always fail. Good point. There is no currency today that comes from a gold deposit. That's true. So Keith was on the mark there. To claim gold backing, you'll have to trust the governments or banks. I'm already laughing, so I guess you know what I'm thinking already with that. You're going to have to trust the government or banks. And if you price a currency to gold, history says it has always failed. I agree, but also disagree with this point here, mainly because I don't think gold failed. I think it's the politicians that failed. And I think it's also you and me that failed by not holding politicians to account. So I think the only thing that really didn't fail was gold. The rest of it was politicians and us letting politicians get away with it. Granted, we aren't, economic scholars or financial scholars or anything like that. But still, there are some things that I think in general we should know or want to know and hold people to account who are in charge of it. So that's my thought with what Keith Weiner had to say. So let me go ahead and check. Let me put this up real quick. Henry, Rod Panhard, Luke Farley, Yukon Cornelius, Civil War. If this is the first time you won, please email us at sbtv@silverbullion.com so we can send you the prize. Okay, so go ahead and email us at silverbullion.com. And again, congrats to all of you. Another clip from Keith Weiner.
for most of the world, the dollar isn't working so well for them. So wouldn't it be neat if you had an asset that wasn't issued by another government, that even if your country is friendly to the US, the dollar isn't necessarily friendly to your financial interests anyway. And then there are a lot of countries that aren't so friendly with the US. And ironically, the emergence of the gold standard in the 19th century was not because everybody agreed, but rather because the fractious, ever at war with each other powers in Europe couldn't agree on anything else. So it ends up being gold as a matter of gold doesn't require any agreement. If you hand somebody gold, gold is universally recognized, universally valued, and there's no further questions.
Right. So the dollar isn't working well for most of the world. Might not even be working for those of us at home in the US. Might not be working that well. It is possible to be friendly to the US, but it may not be friendly to your financial interest, especially at a time like this where they're, going to raise rates. You are going to be paying more if you're in dollar denominated assets or debt. Anyway, you are going to be paying more. Gold, on the other hand, does not need an agreement. It's universally recognized, universally valued. No further questions. So what are your thoughts on this? And that's exactly the point where gold is a neutral reserve asset. It's pretty much the best thing out there. It stores the value of your wealth. It's something that countries and places all across the world know and understand. If you're in gold, you're in a pretty good place. It may not look like that great of an investment right now, but it does seem to be the best insurance. So you just got to kind of weigh it out. Are you looking for that investment in making money? Or are you looking for that insurance to protect your money and to protect what you've made? And that's going to wrap up the guest revisit. We're going to head on over to our website. Before I do that, I just want to check in here. Luke Farley, absolutely sad truth. Sad truth. Henry, U.S. vaults, we all know they're empty. You know what? I'm going to ask Alistair McLeod about that, because if he's saying, China may have more gold than stated, and if he's saying Russia may have a secret stash of gold as well, wonder if the U.S. has a secret stash. What do you think? You think the U.S. has a secret stash of gold, or do you think, like Henry says, the vaults are empty? So curious to see what you have to say. Big Kenny boy, appreciate it. Thanks for that comment. Appreciate it a lot. Means a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into, but labor of love, right? I mean, we all care about each other. We're in the same boat together, and we all got to get through this together. It's like we say back in Hawaii, we have that word ohana, which means family, and nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets left behind. We're all going to get through this. Let's see what else is out there. Seymour. Let's see. Yes, Vincent. He agrees with me. Hey, how you like that? Gold is the best money already. It is. And we can't expect it to manage human beings. And that's the part, it's gold didn't fail. Politicians failed. And again, we got to hold these guys to account, especially if you're going to let someone be sitting in that chair, in Congress or your parliament, whatever it may be, for 10, 15, 20 years. And he never comes around to saying, hey, wait a minute, I see what we're doing, what we're spending, all this pork type of stuff going on. We've got to get back to gold. We have to be more responsible, more accountable. If your guy has been in there 10, 15, 20 years and never once said that, maybe he's not your guy. Maybe he's not your guy. So think about that whenever elections come up. Pablo Pina, Iran and Venezuela will back their currency with gold. Thought it could be a rumor. You know what? We'll see. I'd have to imagine it is a thought, and I'd have to imagine they are, trying to see if it is possible. But the consequences of it, the unintended consequences of it, those are things that definitely going to have to be worked out there. Chainsaw. Nancy and Joe have the secret stash. Well, they could very well, yes, have the secret stash. So moving on over to our website, silverbullion.com.sg. Let's take a look at the gold and silver price, how they're doing. Hard week last week. Very, very hard last week. So let's see if this thing comes up. What's going on? Never mind, I'll pull this one up here. Let me just refresh it if I can. See what that price is. Earlier it was at 24.19, so it is going back down again. And what's going on with my websites? Why aren't they being pulled up? Anyway, 24.19 was where it was at. Gold was at 19.29 as well. So both metals going down a bit. Silver to gold ratio, we're right back at about that 80 level. If you're on the fence trying to decide between buying gold or silver, take a look at buying silver. The reason is this ratio at about 80, you definitely want to be switching over to silver. This is not financial advice. This is just what we find a lot of people do, including us, including me. When it's at that point, we switch over to silver. The reason being it takes 80 ounces of silver to equal 1 ounce of gold. Silver is very, very undervalued compared to gold. You look at the historic ratio, some people say 16, some people say 20 to 1. You look at what's coming out of the ground, the miners are saying 9 or even 8 to 1. And that's the real deal. Whatever it's coming out of the ground, that's the real deal. But the paper markets, they're saying 80 to 1. So you got to, sure, be upset with it for a while. But after that, as we say, back up the truck, go ahead and load up some more if you can. Some of the products you can find at our shop over in Millennial Walk or on our website. Gold maples, popular. Silver maples, very popular. Eagles, of course. Eagles, they always seem to have that higher premium. It's hard to... they always have that higher premium. You got to really love that and want that coin to get them. Yeah, that premium. Boy. Australian kangaroos, 1 ounce. Gold kilo bars you can find, and also 1,000 ounce LBMA bars. These are probably, if you can afford them, these are probably the best to get because their premiums are low. Some of the lowest premiums you can get. And I understand what some guys have been doing. They've been cutting them up into either 10 ounce or 100 ounce pieces and selling them. And some guys have been getting a pretty good premium out of that. So I don't know. I don't know if you want to consider that. But anyway, you can buy the whole bar. It is yours. You own it. You can go ahead and store it in our vault. We have 356 available. Thing here, if you want to buy it and store it in the vault, you're going to have to sign up as a user. We have 6 different ways you can sign up. You can either sign up with a personal account that's just you, joint account, you and perhaps your significant other, trust accounts, joint account with the minor for you and the kids, business account, and then a retirement account. These are the IRA type of accounts. Personal account, just to give you a quick look at it. Basic information. We just need your name, country of nationality, preferred currency, and we'll just need some type of identification. Usually people use a passport. Sometimes a driver's license will work as well. And that's it. We'll do a few checks on things, and then you can go ahead and put your reference as being YouTube, SBTV. That helps us out a lot. And I would suggest that you go ahead and tick this box here. Customer notifications via encrypted, secure notification. All that means is basically if you get an email from us, it just says you have a notification. And we don't put anything else in the body of that email. So you can go ahead and log on, and then you can take a look at your email on our website. That way, of course, the algos or Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, none of those guys can take a peek at what you're talking with us about. So that is one thing that I would recommend. The other thing here, resources tab. If you are a customer of ours, this is a pretty good tab to always check, such as things like payment options. You can pay in all these different currencies as well as a crypto. Just go ahead and click on your desired one. Let's say British pounds, and then you'll get the information on how to go ahead and make payments. And also, a very good reason to store with us is because of our P2P market. And this here, what it is if you store with us, you can go ahead and use your gold and silver, redeploy your assets. You can go ahead and use them as collateral. Go ahead and take out a loan if you wish, and you can go ahead and redeploy those assets as mentioned. In this case here, somebody's looking to make a loan for 6 months in US dollars. He's offering or saying he would like 3.5% per annum interest, and he wants $90,000. And here we have on this side guys who are willing to lend for 6 months. They would like to get this much percentage as their interest, and this is the amount that they would like to lend. So this gentleman is asking for 90,000. We see 134,000 here, so he could definitely fund this loan request, but he's looking at 4.5%. He's asking for 3.5%, so maybe they'll meet in the middle somewhere. And this gentleman, again, he's putting up collateral, these 1,000 ounce LBMA bars. Now, he owns it. During this time, he still does own it. It is his. We never take ownership of any time as it is being used for collateral. So again, you still do own it. At the end of 6 months, you go ahead and pay it off. You go ahead and pay off that interest, and that's it. You're done. So it's a good thing. I mean, you don't have to just store your silver and gold in the dark, let it collect dust, and nothing become of it. Moving on to Twitter. See what's going on out there in Twitter. Some things are bookmarked. And don't forget this. One day, the internet looks to be completely satellite broadband. There's an article here saying how this is what they're moving to, and it all has to do with satellites. So this originally came out from the Dollar Vigilante, I believe. This gentleman is the largest investor in vaccines, largest investor in land, and largest investor in renewables. So you can kind of see that for yourself. But he's also invested in low orbiting satellites, and especially in the flat antennas for these satellites. And this has to do with being able to beam down or communicate with satellite broadband internet. So he's also into this. So keep an eye on what's going out there with this guy here, with that guy there. Okay. Kendall Baker, guys, if you can tell me what's going on with this. I mean, there's some kind of like avian flu or something going on where they're culling chickens and people are sort of protesting about, animal abuse or something. Is that going on with it? I'm just starting to see this, so you guys are more than likely well ahead of me with it. But avian flu, chickens, and that's of concern because I understand a lot of processing plants have been going down as well, exploding or fires or whatever it may be. We'll touch on that in a bit. Lawrence Lepard, he's taking notice of these fences going up around the Federal Reserve. Has it always been there, or is this new as well? I think it's Capitol Hill that is fenced off, and now what the Federal Reserve is fenced off. I mean, or has it been? So let me know on that one. And then we have Powell and Yellen. They walked out at a G20 meeting. Yellen was basically telling China to choose sides. When did the U.S. Central Bank take on these political roles? Is the Fed or are bankers the true leaders? This is definitely a political move that we saw the Fed make. And then this could have biblical consequences, where Israel adds China's yuan for the first time ever while cutting its dollar holdings. So it's basically Israel now starting to divide up their reserve holdings between dollars and yuan. So we'll keep an eye on this as well. Interesting. And then we had Nigeria blocking 73 mobile phones in security clampdown. I understand what happened with this is your SIM cards that goes in your phone. Now you have to register your SIM card. So in other words, they're going to attach a person to the SIM card, and it probably was not like that before. I think in places like Philippines, you can go ahead and buy a SIM card without identification as well. But it looks like now that they are going to start to move where you have to have some kind of ID to buy a SIM card so that can be linked to you. And this is what I was talking about here, where when you look at this, a lot of these are 2022, somewhere in 2021. One was in 2019. But these are food plants, all food plants, the location that they're in, and then the type of destruction that they had. A lot of them fire, one airplane crash, but a lot of them are fires or explosions. So, you got to kind of wonder what's going on, because they're telling us there's going to be a food shortage. But at the same time, these places are kind of going up in smoke. So you got to kind of wonder what's really going on. And now you have that the culling of the chickens, I believe. So anyway, you really got to keep an eye on stuff. Indonesia has invited Russian President Putin for G20 summit. We talked about this before, where Indonesia was in a pretty tough spot. Their reasoning: look, it's a G20 meeting. Russia is part of the G20, so they were invited. And we had this from the IMF. Let me go ahead and play this from the beginning.
That is,
Madam MD.
I think we are not paying sufficient attention to the law of unintended consequences. We take decisions with an objective in mind and rarely think through what may happen that is not our objective. And then we wrestle with the impact of it. Take any decision that is a massive decision, like the decision that we need to spend to support the economy. At that time, we did recognize that may lead to too much money in circulation, too few goods, but didn't really quite think through the consequence in a way that upfront would have informed better what we do. And I subscribe entirely to what Christine said about climate shocks. We are already out of time. And the fact that whenever something hits us, we forget about this other crisis is incredibly troubling. The fact that we are, I'm sorry I'm going on here, but I'll finish in a second. We act sometimes like 8 years old playing soccer. Here is the ball, we are all at the ball, and we don't cover the rest of the field.
Okay. So a message out there at Gary Harvey. What are you referring to? What are you referring to? Let us know. And then we had, let me see what else is out there. Fed is losing control over the inflation narrative. Guys, if you follow us, we've said for a long time, Fed has been trying to get inflation for over a decade. They couldn't get it. So what makes anyone think that once they do get it, that they can control it? And this is something that been saying for a while, starting to see it. This is just a map of the food processing plants that have been going down. And Egon von Greyers, he said something pretty profound. The Fed's real mandate is not the USA. It's workers or the cost of groceries. Remember their dual mandate, right? Price stability and maximum employment. So he's saying no, it's workers or the cost of groceries. And of course, the Fed isn't even federal. So that's a great point from Egon von Greyers. And lastly, I'll close out with this. I found this kind of funny. I hope you folks will as well.
In the United States military, every vehicle is going to be climate friendly. Every vehicle. We're going to have no, I mean it. We're spending billions of dollars to do it. And in the United States military, every vehicle is going to be
let me close
friendly.
that out there. All right, so the military every vehicle is going to be climate friendly. Never mind if that vehicle is meant to blow places to smithereens. Hey, it's climate friendly, so you got to appreciate that, right? Never mind if it's meant to blow things up. And I don't know. I just don't know about that one. Anyway, we're going to move on to our topic of the day, and that topic of the day is going to be Sri Lanka. It's been in the news. It's been in the news quite a bit lately. It's battling inflation, food, fuel shortages, things like that. Defaulting of payments is in the news, and I'm going to start by taking a brief look at the history of Sri Lanka to understand what is happening today. Before I do that, I just want to catch up with some of the comments here. I can see you folks you really know what's going on. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. 49 fine, taking out our food supply. Hey, who knows? I would not want to think so, but I also cannot just dismiss it. We've got to that point already. You can't just dismiss a lot of things nowadays. You really have to take a look at it. And that's the point. That's the point, Abel. It's hard to trust anything coming out from the media nowadays. And I can tell you, living overseas, it's not just the U.S. media. I can tell you it's pretty much almost any media. very hard to not just take it, at face value. You really got to kind of dig into what everybody is saying, especially when it comes from the media. So that's a great point there. Jay Delaney, absolutely. Where do they find these creatures? Where do they find them? Okay, so with that, let's take a look at a brief history of Sri Lanka.
The civilization of Sri Lanka is more than 2,500 years old. Its recorded history commences from around the 6th century BC. In earlier times, the island was known by different names such as Serendip, Tambapanni, and Sihaladvipa. After the arrival of the European colonial powers, it was commonly known as Ceylon. The Aryan settlements were established during the 5th or 6th centuries BC, primarily in the north-central province. The chronicles record that the earliest settlers were the Sinhalese, who derived from a North Indian group of settlers. They established independent kingdoms, including Anuradhapura in the north-central region. Buddhism was introduced by Arahat Mahinda, the son of the Indian Mauryan Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC, and quickly became the religion of the state. The city of Anuradhapura became the seat of government. On a number of occasions, it had to struggle with South Indian invaders, and in the 11th century AD, the capital moved from Anuradhapura to Polonnaruwa. A new era dawned in the annals of the Sri Lankan history with the advent of the Portuguese, who began to occupy the strategic centers of the coastal region of the island since the year 1505, starting from Colombo. By 1597, the Portuguese took formal control of the coastal regions of the island. However, they failed to dislodge the powerful Sinhalese kingdom in Kandy. With the help of the Dutch, the Sinhalese kings were able to expel the Portuguese from Sri Lanka in 1658. The Dutch administration, manned by a trading company that was mainly interested in trade and making profits, nevertheless succeeded in ruling the maritime regions up until 1796. They handed over their possessions in the island to the British in 1796 without any bloodshed. In 1815, British troops defeated the Sinhalese kingdom of Kandy and became the first European power to rule the entire island. Sri Lanka gained independence from the British in 1948 and adopted a democratic socialist system of government. In 1972, the country became a republic and adopted Sri Lanka as its official name.
Okay, so a lot of interesting things there. One thing to me was when the part where the Dutch took over for maritime interest. And some say something very similar to what the Dutch did is weighing heavily on the Sri Lankan economy today, and that being the new Silk Road. So how was this working out for Sri Lanka?
This bare expanse of land reclaimed from the seas around Colombo is where Sri Lanka is building a port city that it hopes will become the financial hub of South Asia. China is helping pay for and build this new project. Its ambassador was on hand to check on progress.
The Colombo Port City project is an important project of the One Belt, One Road initiative in Sri Lanka, which is one of the key countries along the maritime Silk Route. It is also an important project to implement the consensus of China and Sri Lanka, and is an important project for the benefit of Sri Lankan society and its people.
For its part, China will own a little less than half the land for 99 years. Yet the government is confident that the new development will help Sri Lanka's economic prospects.
We are going to be the center of change in the next few years, and Port City will be the catalyst in getting us there.
China's dominance here in Sri Lanka cannot be ignored. This, its latest project, Sri Lanka's largest single foreign direct investment, a project to build a 269-hectare financial city on land reclaimed from the sea. And now China is back again, offering Sri Lanka more million-dollar loans.
The government will likely use that money to pay some of its staggering debt, which stands at around $30 billion. And Chinese loans account for some of that foreign debt. This port in the southern region of Hambantota was built with loans from China, but the government couldn't make its payments and had to give up control of the facility to Beijing for 99 years. China has been criticized for pulling Sri Lanka into what some have called a debt trap, but others see it differently.
Any investor, lender, state, China will go where it sees its opportunities. And if Sri Lanka has been not as stellar as we would like in our homework and our preparedness, we may pay the price.
So as it builds this new port city near Colombo, again with Chinese money, analysts say Sri Lanka's government needs to do better to manage its debts and ensure that it keeps control of mega projects like these. Minna Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Colombo.
Okay, and so I want to take a look at a website here. Let's start getting a little bit of a background on things. Sri Lanka crisis entirely of its own making. Okay, so again, there's always two sides to the coin, right? Excuse me on that. Ravi, let's just call him Ravi, is an independent consultant based in Colombo. A wave of spontaneous protests sweeping through Sri Lanka has shocked the authoritarian government of GR, let's just call him, and threatened its survival. Elected back in 2019 amid a wave of euphoria, the former soldier was expected to deliver security and rapid growth, but instead the country finds itself mired in the worst economic crisis in history. Public opinion soured last year. Jeez, what's going on with this? Soured last year as the regime blundered. Growth stalled, inflation soared, and the currency came under pressure. While the bug has contributed to the economic woes, the problems are largely of its own making. Populist tax cuts, back in 2019 that were financed through money printing has led to a balance of payment crisis as the fiscal deficit ballooned, rating agencies downgraded the country's debt, and an IMF stabilization program was derailed. This shut the country out of international capital markets, making it impossible to roll over maturing debt or finance the growing current account deficit. And despite repeated warnings from independent analysts, the government continued with its homegrown policy, import substitution to save foreign exchange. And this misguided effort to save foreign exchange by banning the imports of things such as chemical fertilizers, remember this now, okay, banning chemical fertilizers, backfired badly as food production dropped and prices rose. Available foreign reserves were run down anyway to service international debt, and the import controls crippled the economy, causing widespread shortages and rising prices. As the foreign reserves dwindled, the government turned to friendly countries for short-term currency swaps to manage the crisis. And this did not address the fiscal and monetary causes of the underlying problems, but they did allow the government to continue with its profligate economic policies. I guess kind of like a budget ceiling, worsening the problem as the reserves dwindled, shortages of goods became more appendant. And I'll just finish up here with this one. The government seemingly believed its problems to be solely bug-related and that the situation would quickly return to normal once tourism improved. So they need that tourism. Unfortunately, the import restrictions now threaten the viability of the very sources of foreign exchange that the government was relying on to fix the problem in the first place. And this is where some things get interesting, where one of you mentioned tea. So now we had tea leaves for oil. Okay, now I think the date on this is a little bit back. This was December 25th of 2021. But tea leaves for oil. Sri Lanka struggles with runaway inflation. Okay, so this is pretty interesting coming out of Singapore. Economic conditions in Sri Lanka are growing worse. The Sri Lankan rupee has fallen sharply as inflation picks up. Funds have been flowing out of the country, leading to a sharp decline in its international credit worthiness, as with Turkey. And the world is becoming increasingly wary of signs of such prolonged inflation, and turbulence in financial markets is already beginning to appear. Goes on to say that we hope to send $5 million worth of tea each month to repay Iran for oil purchases pending since the last 4 years. 4 years. Sri Lankan Plantations Minister Ramesh Patirana told Reuters on Wednesday, well, back on December 25th. So he and Iranian officials in charge of oil exports held a signing ceremony on December 22nd after negotiations in Colombo, Sri Lanka's largest city. They reached a deal in which Sri Lanka's $251 million debt to Iran for past oil purchases will be paid in tea leaves. Could we count this as barter? Anyway, according to Reuters and local reports in both countries, this event symbolized Sri Lanka's urgent need to obtain foreign currency. And as one of you pointed out, we also had this where the IMF, Sri Lanka asked IMF for rapid financial assistance. I think this was pretty recent, April 19th of 2022. Coming from Reuters, Sri Lanka has asked the International Monetary Fund for rapid financial assistance, and the global lenders considering it after initial reluctance, an aide to the country's finance minister had said the other week. Again, we all know this here where the protests have erupted in the island nation as it battles a devastating financial crisis brought on by the bug, mismanaged government finances, and rising fuel prices that have sapped foreign reserves. And a delegation headed by Sri Lankan Finance Minister Ali Sabri kicked off formal talks with the IMF in Washington on Monday for a program the government hopes will help top up its reserves and attract bridge financing to pay for essential imports of food and medicine. All right, so hope the IMF likes tea. Maybe they'll get a break there if IMF likes tea. Who knows? So to get a better understanding of what's going on and how things are in Sri Lanka, I managed to contact a friend who lives in Sri Lanka. And I want to share this interview I did with him just over the weekend. I mean, it was like yesterday. It was just done really, really recently. And he holds a director position in Sri Lanka. He's a U.S. citizen. And for obvious reasons, I'm just going to call him Director T, and I'm going to have to give him some form of anonymity. And I'm going to say, because you joined this live stream, you guys may be the only ones to see this. I don't know if we'll post this up later as a individual interview, but you folks may be the only ones to see this. So I'll move on. I'll stop it from time to time and we can discuss. I think the video is about 15, 20 minutes long, but we can stop and get a few points in. So here we go. Everyone, and welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira. Sri Lanka. It's been in the news lately, whether it's for food shortages, debt crisis, defaults, whatever it may be. News coming out of Sri Lanka is not all that positive. I have a friend there who's lived there over 30 years. We'll call him Director T and afford him some anonymity. And he's going to let us know just how things are going in Sri Lanka from the ground up. Director T, welcome to SBTV. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's good to be with you.
How long have you been living in Sri Lanka?
Been living there 31 years plus.
Okay, so you have a pretty good insight as to what it was before the crisis and how things are now.
Yes.
In your opinion, what has caused the crisis that we're seeing in Sri Lanka today?
Three major things have caused this current crisis. Number one, corruption. And corruption is rife, especially with the current administration. And they have literally raped the economy. Long before COVID, long before any other issues, but mainly during the 30-year civil war that Sri Lanka was involved in. And the politicians in power have literally raked off multiplied millions, I mean literally multiplied millions of dollars. In fact, it's estimated into $2 to $3 billion. That's number one. Number two has been the Easter attack, 2019 of April. We had a terrorist attack, as they call it, and they believe it's been proven to a certain degree with underground type people that the current government was the one that pulled it off so that they could come into power and win the election. And that has backfired on them. And from that time, the people of Sri Lanka have really been disheartened, and migration started at a higher rate. They blamed the attack on ISIS, but though ISIS claimed, even the cardinal of the Catholic Church of Sri Lanka and other dignitaries have a firm belief that the current leaders were the ones behind it so that they could be voted into power as the security people that could rein things into Sri Lanka. That's number two. Number three would be the pandemic. And the shutdowns were major. They were unnecessary, and they were highly political. And they were used to silence political opposition. And so those three things worked together have led today to the destruction that we're seeing of the current economy.
Can you? Okay, I'm back again. So, what do you guys think? I mean, when I first heard this, I thought it was kind of similar to what we heard in our Lebanon interviews, where we had a government that wasn't all that straight, and and then I kind of thought about what we saw in the U.S. during election time, where even today, where people get silenced, opposing or differing views, they get silenced. So you're seeing two of these things pop up in Sri Lanka. So I found that pretty interesting as well. So I'm looking at your comments here. A lot of you guys are thinking maybe they'll make more payments with T. But let's move on and see what else he had to say, Director T. Tell me what, let's say, the food situation is like. Is there enough food? Are we seeing shortages of some items, perhaps rationing? Are we seeing maybe even price controls?
We're seeing a shortage of food. They're having to import a lot of rice. Different countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, China, have all contributed towards the rice shortage in Sri Lanka. The reason for that is the current president, when he came into power 2 years ago, he stopped all chemical fertilizers from the rice paddy farmers and tried to go to organic. It did not work. It backfired. He just admitted last week that it was a phenomenal mistake. And so the food shortage is not just caused by what's going on. It's caused by a lot of inappropriate political decisions to try to please the, well, what do you call them? The environmentalists, the world environmentalists, to go to organic fertilizer. And it's created a massive shortage of rice. So that, and then the commodities that come by way of imports to the hotels. Sri Lanka's number one economy is dependent on tourism. And so they bring in a lot of food products that are not grown in Sri Lanka. All of that has stopped. And so the people that have been accustomed to those kinds of things, from tinned foods, from foods like beef imports, things of that nature, a lot of that has stopped. And so there's a major shortage on things of that nature. Many hotels have closed down. A lot of restaurants and small, what we call food cotties, which means a small store restaurant where somebody can come up and just for a couple hundred rupees get a lunch packet. A lot of them have closed down because they cannot get the food.
So that they're also pretty interesting, where they basically were moving off of chemical types of fertilizers. They went to a more organic type of fertilizers to please organizations. And it didn't work. It just backfired, as he said. It did not work. And, this is kind of something that we're starting to see, with fossil fuels. We're seeing this energy shortage going on now in order to appease certain groups and organizations. And all I'm saying is there has to be a balance, a very, very realistic balance. And we didn't see that here. So again, rice shortages, food. That's a main food for Sri Lanka, and hotels. So that's unfortunate, bad timing, bad luck. Where the bug came around, their number one industry, I guess, tourism, took a hit. It took a hit, and I don't think it has recovered yet. So they're trying to get tourists back in. So I just want to go through again and see what your comments here. Yeah, it's tough. Arab Spring, that's a tough word, but that's a tough word. Let's see, cacao might be a hot commodity. Who knows? Okay, so let's move on and see what else he had to say. It'll get better. He mentioned that tourism was perhaps the biggest moneymaker for Sri Lanka. But what's their biggest export?
Well, the biggest export is tea. They raise a lot of tea there. John Lipton and Mr. Taylor, from way back in the 18th century into the 19th century, exported a lot of tea. So that's still an export that they're highly dependent on. And then second to that would be rubber. And third, but rising to take second place, is rubies. They have a lot of gem mines in Sri Lanka, and that's beginning to take off in a better way as they brought in modern equipment to mine gems.
It's pretty interesting.
Tried.
Oops. Okay, so rubies. Well, who knows? I mean, store of wealth. Maybe that's something they need to help out. But again, tourism, that's a tough blow for Sri Lanka. So just wanted to touch on that again. And of course, the tea leaves. We saw that in the article with Iran, where they're using that to pay for past oil. Okay, this is already debt. It's not for future purchases. So Sri Lanka is in a bit of a bind there for sure. Once again, so let's move on.
Just yesterday, to raise it twice, rupees affected because of food is cooking gas. Well,
across an article where Sri Lanka was trying to pay for oil, Iranian oil with tea.
Yes.
So that's pretty interesting. Director T, with the rise of food prices, are you seeing inflation hitting other areas as well? What other things have risen in price?
Well, the number one rise that's affected because of food is cooking gas. And there's a major shortage, and they tried just yesterday to raise it twice as to what it was. So at an average of 2,400 for a 5 kilogram cylinder of cooking gas, they try to get up to over 5,000 rupees. The government put a stop on it, put a hold on it, but they're just selling it at cost. That's just at cost. And so there's a major shortage. So people are gathering wood literally in the city. Restaurants are cooking outside. People are going outside in front of their homes, and they're cooking off of wood. And of course, in the villages and outside of the capital city, there's now a wood shortage because so many are cooking on wood because there's no cooking gas. And so the food crisis and the cooking gas crisis has gone together to create major strife.
Yeah, I can. Okay, so the food crisis, along with the cooking crisis, that's energy and food. Okay, it's energy and food. And that's what we're kind of seeing in this half of the world, right? Or in the West, energy problems. And you're starting to see food problems. So, again, it may be a bit, for lack of a better word, microscopic what's going on in Sri Lanka. But on the bigger picture, on the macro, this is also happening or starting to happen worldwide. And this is why what's going on in Sri Lanka, it holds a place with what we're, let's say, I don't want to see it, but what we may see in the rest of the world. So this is why it's good to keep an eye on Sri Lanka. But what do you think about that? Firewood. I mean, they're having to go and cut down wood, get wood wherever they can, get something that they can make a fire out of wherever they can just to cook. I mean, it's no wonder that you see all these protests going on. I mean, you're hitting people in the stomach. When you hit people in the stomach, you hit people in the wallet. That's when things really start to bubble up. So we got to keep an eye on this one. Let me move on to another topic that he said about this crisis. imagine just the simple act of eating or cooking food is one of the things that are causing the protests that we see. Uh, let's say should the wood all be chopped down and burned up, what's left? What's left for them to cook?
Yeah, well, they try to gather up dried coconut leaves. They try to gather up just the leaves that fall off of trees. The people out in the village, especially that can't afford any of this, they can't even buy a bundle of wood. They just go out literally and they gather anything dried that's burnable, cardboard, litter of different sorts, and they're trying to burn things just to be able to cook something.
Wow. Okay, so that's how desperate the situation is getting in some places where anything they can burn, they are going to use it just to cook. So again, this is part of the reasons why we are seeing all of these protests going on, whether it's the government, the debt, the food shortages, whatever it is, inflation. They have a lot going on. Let me take a look at a few comments. LC charcoal briquette. I don't think they have much access to that. Maybe they do, but I would imagine in the far-reaching places, the provinces out of the city, it's really wood or whatever they can burn. And it's an unfortunate situation because sometimes people will actually burn things that do give off toxic fumes or chemicals, and you don't want them to be cooking their food over that. So something to keep in mind as well. Let's move on. See what else Director T had to say. Oh, that's amazing. Not in a positive way. You mentioned cooking oil or cooking gas. Before the crisis, how much, let's say, was a gallon of regular petrol gas, well, a fuel for cars?
Yeah, well, fuel for cars was averaging at about 165 rupees a liter. And right now it's, boy, I tell you what, it depends on what petro shed you go to. But you can definitely pay up to over 560 rupees a liter. And some of it is going for 600 to 700 rupees a liter for fuel.
Okay, I can imagine things are starting to be. Okay, so fuel prices going up. And again, this is something we're also seeing in the West, right? Petrol prices, fuel prices going up. So again, things that are happening in Sri Lanka, which is a smaller island, you're seeing the same things happening pretty much in different parts of the world. So again, this is why I wanted to bring this up to see what's going on there. Dumb Money Media, thank you, appreciate this. Let me put this up there. Rob Keynes Action Summit. Absolutely, if you can, go ahead and join that. Rob Keynes, I'm going to say he's one of the good guys. Got to check him out. Follow him if you can. Stop by and have some fun. Also made a hype commercial if you're curious. All right, we'll take a look at it. So, yeah, if you can, Rob Keynes Summit coming up. That'll be a good one. Let's see. Tweety Bird. Yeah, it's getting pretty tough out there. Yeah, Abel, inflation is caused by money printing. That's part of the equation. The other part of the equation is shortages. And this is why I say, even if the Federal Reserve tries to pull back on the money supply, I don't really know what good that's going to do because you still have a supply side shortage. So it's kind of like, if you pull back here, this gets pulled back. You pull back here, this gets pulled back. So I don't see, how that balance is going to, I don't see how it's going to really work. So I think, Fed is really in trouble and it's backed itself into a corner here. So we'll see what goes on with that. More from Director T. Ration, would that be the case there?
Yes, they've already rationed. For instance, in most vehicles, they put a limit on half gallon, and most vehicles in Sri Lanka would take 5,000 rupees. And so they've limited each customer to 5,000 rupees of vehicle. That won't even put a half tank now because they had a fuel increase 2 days ago. And also as the rupee goes, it goes wayward against the US dollar. It's at 340 right now, 340 rupees for a dollar. The fuel prices are going up and people just aren't able to put fuel in their vehicles anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so again, something we're seeing as well. Gas is going up, fuel is going up, energy is going up, and the crisis in the Ukraine is, I'm not blaming it, but I'm saying it definitely won't give relief. And again, this is why sovereign countries, sovereign nations, they're going to have to do what they need to do for their own people. And again, this also leads into the whole realignment of things. Are we going to see a realignment of things? Are we going to see Europe break down come winter, where they need the fuel to keep warm? This a lot of things. I'd say a lot of things are on the table right now, and probably more concerning are the things under the table right now that people are going to make deals upon. So again, just keep your head on a swivel here, and I'll move on to a few more things that Director T had to say. So I guess, as people, of course, they're trying to buy all of these things. With regard to the currency, could you let the viewers know what is the currency used in Sri Lanka, and has this crisis sparked the use of perhaps other more desirable currencies, or perhaps even barter?
Yes, we use the Sri Lankan rupee. It's native only to the country. India, Pakistan, and most South Asian countries use the rupee currency, but it's their own. So the Sri Lankan rupee is greatly devalued, and people are looking for, obviously, US dollars. They're looking for the pound and the England and euro dollars. And so a lot of them, when they leave the country, they go there and they have business contacts or family contacts, people who've migrated, and they try to do some exchange and bring those currencies back in. There is a movement to try to dump the Sri Lankan rupee. They don't want to do that, but it looks like that may be their only choice. As the IMF, International Monetary Fund, people said it might be good just to dump the rupee and consider going with the Chinese currency, or going with another major currency, even taking up the Indian rupee until things are stable.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is one part I found interesting, where he said the people, you and me, they want dollars, they want pounds sterling, they want euros. The people want dollars, sterling, euro, or pound and euro. But the government or the IMF is saying use yuan instead, or maybe Indian rupee. So it's interesting to me where the people want one type of currency to use, and the government they're going to give them something else, or the IMF is saying use something else. So who's in charge here? You got to ask the question now, who's in charge? I want to use this for currency. You're not going to let me. You want me to use something else. So who's in charge? So moving on, another clip. Director T, that's pretty amazing, because it seems all throughout history, a currency will inflate and they'll bring in a new currency, and it may inflate again. They'll bring in a new currency. And this is something we're seeing kind of happening all over the world with inflation. So you kind of, you start to wonder, hey, is all the world going to start to move to a new currency? So I appreciate that insight there. How about ATMs? Are ATMs still running? Is there a limit on how much people can withdraw daily?
They have not put a limit. It's just the normal limits depending on what your bank account shows. And most ATMs have a limit on what anybody can take out of them. But we have all noticed that when we go to the ATMs, most of them need to be serviced. It says out of order, or needs to be serviced. And so it does look rather peculiar. We all understand that there is a run, and there has been a run on the banks. There have been lines, especially at the government banks, but even some of the private banks have had long lines of people going into their savings accounts because they can't afford anymore. Their job isn't enough. They're making the same wage, and they have to go to their savings to take up the inflation. So they go to the ATM, and a lot of the ATMs get closed early, or there's a big band, white paper put over it, out of order, and something that has not been a normal practice in the past.
Okay, so, right, sort of a bank holiday. Can't get money out of your ATMs. ATMs are being serviced. I don't know. You really got to wonder what's going on out there. Dumb Money Media, again, appreciate it. Yeah, sure, why not? Channel is small, but I make only silver anime meme, along with economic dystopia stuff. I'm trying to draw the younger crowd to medals while laughing at the dumpster fire world. You know what? I can appreciate that. If if you're trying to pull younger people into understanding metals, I mean, I'm definitely all for that. I think it's important that people understand, especially younger people, understand what metals can do for them. So appreciate it again. Appreciate it, Dumb Money Media. So again, with what Director T is saying, getting access to cash is not that easy anymore. So the only thing left is going digital. And I asked him about that. I would imagine this is forcing people to transact pretty much purely digitally at this point.
Yes.
Okay. I want to go back to something you said is pretty interesting, where the IMF recommended the Chinese yuan, or perhaps moving into the Indian rupee. I find it interesting that there's no mention of the US dollar. I'm kind of wondering why in that part of the world is the preference more towards the rupee or the yuan as opposed to the dollar?
Well, if I can be so bold as just to say, the answer to that is because China has made a major inroad into Sri Lanka. In many respects, they own the country. Sri Lanka is in such great debt to them. They can't even pay the interest on the loan. 96% of the tax revenue goes towards the Chinese debt, just the interest on the Chinese debt. And so the movement is toward the Chinese yuan for that purpose. They believe it would bring immediate stability. And China has already promised to bring in an average of 60,000 tourists a month, or at least try to bring in 100,000 every quarter as soon as some of their COVID issues begin to heal up in China. And so that's the big reason that they're shying away from the US dollar, because China wants to keep that inroad that they have there.
Right. And okay, so that's pretty interesting as well. We saw that clip where, of course, that new Silk Road, China is building infrastructure for them. And then it's up to Sri Lanka, in fairness, to be able to do something with it, to generate profits, to pay for these things. So we got to be fair about this. But these are the types of deals that are made on the table and under the table where, now it seems like, okay, Sri Lanka, don't take US dollars, take Chinese yuan. And in exchange, I'll send you a whole bunch of tourists, 60,000 tourists a month, get your tourism industry going again, and use the yuan so that way my people can use their money freely in your country. It's like I say, deals, they're either on the table or under the table. Just depends how you look at it. But that part there it's pretty interesting. So that could be the reason why the government is looking at yuan over dollars. But then again, dollar isn't really... Do you really want to be in dollars as well? So we always got to try and be fair here, right? With whatever we take a look at. So moving on, another clip from Director T. This has to do with the Belt Road Initiative, where I believe China created some ports and things like that. Even I believe an airport for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, brand new airport down south. But China also, they gave $1 billion to the current government so that they could have the southern port, and they've developed that. They've also acquired 18,000 acres in the south, and the Chinese government is starting to develop that. And so that Silk Road concept has brought ownership of the whole island.
Yeah, I've been reading quite. Okay, so again, we got to be fair about it. Mutant Ref, you made a comment as well. Federal Reserve prints money, and you guys help me out here. As far as I remember, gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, and debt is the money of slaves. So we are having countries actually go into debt, through this, let's just say trying to better themselves through the new Silk Road Initiative. I guess they see a lot of good things down the road by doing it. They're seeing perhaps, money being generated by doing it. But when it fails, there are consequences to pay. So that's a good point there. Let me play another clip. I think we're just got about maybe another 5-6 more minutes of this, but let me play another clip here. A bit of reports on that. I believe people have called it the debt trap.
Yes.
But moving on here a bit. Are people still working, or have businesses start to shut down because of a shortage of supplies and inflation and things like that?
A lot of businesses have reduced their hours because they can't afford to keep their employees working all day long, 8 to 10 hour day. as normal. Even in the tourist industry, a lot of them have had to curtail. And so we don't see as many closed doors as one would think, but we have seen a reduction in their services and their service hours. There's been a huge reduction in those areas for, I would say, probably just downtown city of Colombo, the capital city. You could drive through the city and you can see a lot of closure early in the day, like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as opposed to the 5, 6 p.m.
Yeah, and I understand. Okay, so businesses shutting down early, and of course that means people's wages. All right, the business shut down. Maybe they don't have enough supply, shortages here or there. Close early, people's wages. They probably don't get their full wages, and again, it's a double whammy. Not only are things not there, they're more expensive, and you're not bringing home as much money. So I think it's just a tsunami of things happening in Sri Lanka. Let me just continue and play these clips for you. And something that's shutting off a bit early also or not having normal working hours is electricity. Could you tell us a bit about the electricity situation? I understand it's not running 24 hours anymore.
Well, that's the whole thing. We have an average. Every province in Sri Lanka, the 9 provinces, has an average of 3.5 hours of power cuts every day. Before that, the week, 2 weeks prior, it was 5. We've had up to 8-hour power cuts. And so a lot of them are just not able to function. And so when they find out the time that these power cuts are going to take place, they close their doors. And of course, the ATMs, unless they have a generator, they're closed. And so you can see how that multiplies. And before you know it, you have people who are just unable to function with their job. Schools close early. They open the schools and they close the schools because they don't have electricity. And so it's affecting everything.
What are the Sri Lankan people trying to do as far as storing their wealth? And what I mean is, if they're holding a Sri Lankan rupee, it may lose value the next day or within the next couple days. So what are they trying to do to keep their money, having some sort of value?
A lot of them that have the ability to understand economics, a lot of them are buying jewelry. They're buying gold jewelry. They're buying precious gems. Some of them are, like I was telling you, they're trying to trade with family members and friends who live abroad, and trying to get their help and exchanging their rupees for dollar accounts in foreign countries. And so those are the 2 main things that they're doing. The people who live out in the villages, those are the ones who are stuck. Some of them are trying to buy property, and they're trying to expand their farms and just let the land lay idle. And it's not going too well with that, because that seems to be the one thing that all of them in the village areas are trying to do, is buy each other. And then they realize they can't afford that.
Okay, so that's a great point there. That was a point where I think some of you were asking if they have access to buy precious metals. So Director T is saying that people are trying to put their money into other things. Some trying to put it into land. Some are trying to put it into precious gems, while others, they're putting into jewelry, gold jewelry, to be that store of value. And so this is something that we talk about quite often, that store of wealth. When your money is really starting to inflate or deflate away, devalue away, you need to put it into something. And, in this case, again, gold is one of those things that people are putting it in. Second Horizon, I noticed you've been commenting a lot. Are you in Sri Lanka? I just want to throw that out there and ask. So I appreciate your comments. If you are in Sri Lanka, go ahead and feel free to chime in here. Let's see. Mr. Razor, they're struggling, even just with cooking the food. They're struggling with just even that act of cooking food. Rationing, I believe you said in some places they already started. Shortages, I believe it's already there. Things like rice, the meats, for sure. So it's already happening. Let's move on with a couple more clips. With all of these things going on, do you sense that the Sri Lankan people still have a mood of hope or are they really looking for just an absolute change across the board?
In my 31 years plus in Sri Lanka, I've seen the most resilient people I've ever met. And they have stood up to a lot of the economic pressures. They've stood up to that 30-year civil war. But this time, you can see how disheartened, discouraged they are. Immigration is breaking records on producing passports as people do anything and everything they can. They're borrowing from each other to send their sons and daughters abroad for work, for school, just to get them out of Sri Lanka. That's how discouraged they are. There's a mass movement of people who are doing everything they can just to leave the country and never return, as they say.
Okay, so I think that's going to wrap up the short interview I had, with Director T. So, and I think what he had to say is pretty interesting. He is from the U.S. He is an American who has been in Sri Lanka for over 30 years. He does hold a director position. So he does see it. He sees what's going on in Sri Lanka. It is his home. He sees what's going on there, and then he also sees what's going on outside of his home back in the U.S., which I guess would also be his home, we could say. And he sees it, and he sees the similarities, as do we. You and I, we are seeing these similarities. We can go back to Lebanon. We saw the same things. We can take a look at Turkey. We're seeing almost the same things. We can look at Argentina, the times they've defaulted. We can almost see these same things again. So, it's happening. Without you can't deny anymore. It is happening, and although we may not be as far into these areas as some other countries are, things are starting to unravel. We showed earlier how all of a sudden food processing plants are going down. We're seeing what's going on in the Ukraine with natural resources, energy, things like that. We're seeing what's going on with inflation, what's going on with on the supply side of inflation. And then you take a look at places like Sri Lanka where it all comes together. And it's concerning. I don't want to say frightening because there are things we can do, but it's definitely concerning. And as mentioned, first of all, what do you think? What do you think about this? And again, the thing that caught my attention was where the people wanted one type of currency, but the government or the IMF, who's the IMF? I didn't know they ruled countries, but they're suggesting or saying use something else. So, this is something that we really got to keep an eye on. So anyway, that's going to end the topic of the day. We'll move over to commentary in a bit, but I just want to check in with you guys and see how things are going. Again, Dumb Money Media. Well, appreciate it, brother. Yeah, we'll do. We'll send you a DM. In fact, anybody out there, if you want to go ahead and send him a DM, go ahead and do it. Yeah, we'll do that. But again, thanks for what you do and thanks for your support. That's much appreciated, especially with the young guys. With the young guys, that's very important. So let's see what else is out here. Mutiny Ref, well, we'll see if it ever gets to that. When military turns against politicians, then it will get real. I tell you what, it'll be a real banana republic for one thing if it ever gets to that point. I mean, things are really, really going to be bad if it really ever gets to that. Henry, what really gets me is that people here in the U.S. are still completely oblivious. My family thinks I'm crazy. Welcome to the club. When I talk about all of this. Yeah, Henry, it's tough because part of it is because, you look at people's homes, they're going up in value. Hey, so what's the problem? I'm getting richer, the wealth effect. Or they look at the stock markets, it's going up. And so they're thinking, hey, what am I worried about? Stock market's going up, what do I worry about? Everything is good. So it's hard to convince people until they're hit into places, that being the stomach or the wallet, as we talked about, as we mentioned here. Let's see what else is out here. Okay. All right. I think you guys are good. Let me just head over to comments here. Inflation once again, it looks to bring in a new currency. We're seeing it in Sri Lanka, right? This happens time and time again. It looks to be coming on strong again. But this time it might be global. It's not just going to be one country. Eventually, it's going to spread all over. It's going to be global. And it does look to be central bank digital currencies. Maybe the yuan by brute force, as IT guys like to say, as we're going to see in Sri Lanka perhaps, or via debt traps. Who knows? Who knows? But no matter what it is, we are going to see changes here. And the new Silk Road and the debt trap, we need to keep an eye on them from Africa to Southeast Asia to South Asia. Countries have gone into debt. Okay, let's just be clear on this. Countries have gone into debt. And if what the IMF says is any indicator of what will come, these countries, that are in debt, maybe partially due to the debt trap, but these countries who are in debt, if what the IMF said is any indication, they are going to de-dollarize should they get into trouble. So again, this is more how de-dollarization can accelerate fairly quickly. So to start the US dollar, gang is on the chopping blocks, but we already know this. And if we learned anything, just as the people of Sri Lanka are doing by moving their currency into gold as a store of value, so too must you and I by seeing the writing on the wall and move. We need to move into stores of value, things that store wealth, things like gold and things like silver. So it's unfortunate, but, take it in. Take it in, learn what you can, and do your best to put yourself in a position where you can weather these types of things should they ever happen. So again, I'll just take a look at a few comments here and then we'll head out. Let's see. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Max. Juanita Chicken, it's not their fault. They're part of the machine, the P machine. That's a great part of it. I think in the States right now, they're talking more about some Johnny Depp trial than the whole food situation where places are burning and things like that. And so, you gotta kind of wonder, isn't the food situation thing a bit more important than Johnny Depp? I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just me. But let's see what else is out here. Let's see. Mr. Razor, start storing food and lead. Precious metals may help you there. But when things hit the fan, it's going to be tough to get food, property, and you may have to protect what you have as well. And we do have to change our thinking because things are going to change, and I don't think it's going to allow us to think the same way. So we have to think differently, and we have to think ahead of what we see these changes to be. So last comment here before we head out. Patrick Bateman, a banana republic has cheap bananas. True, unless it's your currency that's being devalued. Everybody else is going to be fine. But Banana Republic has cheap bananas. That's a great point. So with that, appreciate you guys being here again. Food does seem to be quite an issue. I'm really kind of stuck on this because I don't know if you folks have had the chance to look at Lynette Zhang's channel, Beyond Gold and Silver. She's on it. She's talking about food and things you need to do. I'd recommend you seeing what she's doing out there. It's for all of us. It's knowledge for all of us to learn and understand. I do hope you folks have a chance to get there because we're in the gold and silver space. Absolutely. We're in the wealth protection space. Absolutely. But there are still things you can do on your own. And, her Beyond Gold and Silver channel on YouTube I think that's doing quite a bit for people out there as well. So I hope you have a chance to look at it. But with that, I just want to say, thanks for being here again. Be a blessing. Be a blessing, not a burden. We're all in this boat together. We're going to make it through. We will all make it through. And, as I always say, saddle up for what's coming ahead and silver up as well. I won't be here, I think, for the next 2 weeks. I got to get some cataract surgery going on. So I got to be able to see some words clearly. I'm like seeing double vision here. So anyway, appreciate your thoughts and prayers as that goes on. And one last thing here. K Sarah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that greatly. Yeah, we appreciate you. I think we all have big hearts here. You know, we all need to take care of each other. That's just the way it's going to be. You know, we're going to have to take care of each other, and let's just all happily do it. You know, the bigger the family, the more we can do together. So you guys take care, saddle up and silver up, and I'll see you guys, literally see some of you guys a whole lot better anyway in a couple weeks. See, take care.